I think it's the old Zoom meeting thing. So maybe not all of like the people know that we are using Teams now.
Yeah. Let me see. I have to send it to myself via email first because I have WhatsApp only on my cell phone and not on my computer. So
I can do it myself. I have WhatsApp here, WhatsApp access here. I can do it if you
okay,
want.
cool, cool. Yeah, thank you, great. Okay, cool.
Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Fine, thanks. Everything good. How
That's
about you?
great. Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. It's been a rainy
Great.
day, which is kind of nice. We need it here, so it's kind of nice and relaxing.
That sounds great. Not very typical for the area that you live.
Yeah. Well, I mean, where I live, it's the rainiest place in United States.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah,
I
the
thought it's
Mobile
a
Bay.
desert.
Yeah, it's literally we have the most rain in the whole country. But this summer has been very strange. It hasn't rained almost at all. I mean, it's I don't remember when it rained last time, and so now it's been raining just a little bit, not a lot. But it's been a very very strange year.
Mhm. Today it's also raining in Bulgaria, but it's typical. Winter is coming, so we
Yeah,
can expect it.
yeah. In Finland, snow has arrived already. So yeah,
Definitely.
it's. I mean, I like snow. I mean, I wish that we would have snow over here.
Hello, good morning. We are indifferent.
Yeah. I mean, snow is good for skiing and it's beautiful.
Yeah, especially to watch how it's snowing, to see it and to play with it. But after, if you're driving,
Yeah, I
it's
know.
tricky.
Yeah, it's
But for
bad.
ski, it's the best. Yeah, if it's in
Yeah,
the mountain,
yeah,
walking,
it's true.
skiing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I used to live in Colorado, and Colorado is nice because the snow is typically in the mountains. So you drive up to the mountain, go skiing, and then you drive back to the city. And typically, it's no snow in the city like Denver or Colorado Springs. So that's kind of a perfect that way. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not fun to be driving in the snow. But
So
it's
last
nice to
week
have.
I was still in Calgary and it was minus 15.
Uh-huh.
Today I'm in Cairo. Today I'm in Cairo and it is like
Yeah,
25 plus.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's quite a difference there, right? Yeah,
and especially when you travel, it's a bit tricky. Last weekend I was in Cyprus, and when I start from Sofia, it was like 8, 10 degrees that day,
hmm
and when I arrived there that day, it was 30 degrees. Here the
yeah,
sun rise at 7:30
yeah,
maybe, and when I go there 5:45, it was like
yeah.
day.
Yeah, it's hard when you're traveling because you have to have all kinds of clothes with you, to prepare for
Yeah.
all kinds of. Yeah, I mean, I've been many times in situations where, like last year, I went to Boston for a business trip, and I had no idea that it started snowing in Boston, and so I, just had like like slack shoes, slack pants and dress shoes, and I didn't have any boots or anything like that. So I was, falling down in the slippery, snowy streets in Boston because I didn't have proper clothing with me. And so it's taught me a lesson that, winter time or close to winter time, you always want to be prepared.
I have the opposite situation because I had to buy some summer clothes from here. I
Yeah,
prepared my luggage based on
yeah,
the expectations that the winter is there. So I got some hoodies, some
yeah,
like heavy clothes. When I
yeah,
came here, I found it like 25 plus. So I had
yeah.
to buy like some t-shirts.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's if I would have to choose, I would choose that problem because t-shirts are cheaper than winter clothes. So, but yeah, I mean, it's it's rough when you start sweating. Well, good. It's good to see you all, and let's get started here. Does anybody have any questions before we get started on anything? Have you been working on your assignments at all? Have any questions about those? Because it would be nice if we are roughly in the midpoint of the term, and because you have that assignment kind of due in a midpoint, one assignment one. I decided not to do a quiz yet. I'll give it another week and then I'll do a quiz, and and so so I don't have too much going on at the same time. I have to take a
Yes,
look.
I have a question about the first quiz.
Yes, go
If
ahead.
you don't mind, because I haven't submit my first quiz yet,
Yeah, go
and
ahead and submit it.
I'm not sure. Okay,
Yeah, go
sounds
ahead and
great. Thank you
submit
so
it.
much for that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody,
Sounds
if you miss that, just go ahead and do it. I mean, it's not. I mean, obviously, it would be nice if people would do it in a timely manner, but at the same time, doing it is more important. I mean, you're all working adults, so I understand, busy schedules and whatever. So if you haven't done it, go ahead and do it and send me a message that you've done it, and I'll go and grade it. I'll go to take a look after this class. What if anybody has submitted anything?
Yeah, for me, I already submitted.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Julian, what do you say? Did you submit one?
Yes, and I
Okay.
don't know if it's in your side or because sometimes you don't know how traffic
Yeah.
these teams. No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll let you know if I don't see it, but I'll go and grade it after this class.
Okay, thank you, Tomi.
Yep. Absolutely. So, yeah, today we'll talk about something that is definitely going to be applicable to everybody, even if you don't want to, work in human resource management. And that's really talking about career management. Career management, of course, we all have, if you have careers, you want to make sure that you are managing your career, and it's a responsibility of an employee and employer. And both, if you have a good organization that you work for, there are a lot of things that the organization can do for you, and of course, you have to be responsible of your career yourself too. So we'll talk about what employers can do, how you can, improve or why career development can improve employee engagement, and we'll talk about retention, because retention is obviously very, very important. Um, it's costly. It costs 20,000 to 30,000, to replace an entry-level employee. And of course, if you start looking at more of a higher level employees, it's much more expensive than that. So you really want to kind of think about it, before you start letting people go. You want to think about the cost of it for sure. So a little bit definitions over here. It's these terms sometimes used kind of interchangeably, and it's important to kind of understand what the terms mean. Um, so obviously, this is a topic that is important to talk about after the performance appraisal, because performance appraisal has a lot to do with career management, because that's when you have that opportunity to talk about where do you want to go in your career, and how is this, performance evaluation, how does this kind of support you in that? I mean, are you ready for promotion right now, or maybe you're not doing too well in this position, maybe when I think about moving you to another position. So that's kind of many times where the discussion takes place. And of course, performance appraisal discussions have a lot to do with retention and job satisfaction, and somebody wanting to be engaged, because if it's done poorly, person is going to be demoralized and they're going to be dissatisfied, and many people leave. if they don't feel fairly treated. There is a theory called equity theory in motivation. It's a motivation theory, and equity basically means that all of us, we look at our input and our output ratio. So input is how much work we put into something, and output is the reward that we get out of that level of input. And so we compare ourselves to other people, and we look at the amount of work that other people put into. And if somebody puts in less work, that you think that you are putting more work into something that somebody else, and they put less work into it, but they get more rewards, more salary, that is called negative inequity. And if it's other way around, if you are getting more output from less input than somebody else, is called positive inequity. But the interesting thing that even in a positive inequity, when you are the one benefiting, it's still demoralizing. It's still causing less self-satisfaction to you. Obviously not as much as negative inequity, but you still know that it's unfair. It's just that you are benefiting from unfairness. But we still, in our ethical core, our moral core, we in heart of hearts, we know that it's fair and unfair to somebody else. So typically, solution to or resolution to inequity like that is at the end of the day, according to research, in those situations, the employee leaves the organization. So it's very important that these promotion decisions, career management decisions, are made in a fair fashion, and employee appraisal is a moment where you really want to emphasize that. So career is different than a job. Can anybody tell me what's the difference between a job and a career in your mind? Is there a difference? So job is just that. It's a job. So if you want to get some extra money during summertime, you get a job. But just because you have a job, like a summer job, doesn't mean that that job is a career. It's just a job. It's temporary, or sometimes job can be not temporary. It can be permanent. But sometimes people just have a job. It's not something that they are thinking about as a career. It's just they are doing it just to make money. That's all. Career is a sequence of positions. It's sort of all of those occupational positions that you hold over the years. And if there is positive progression, that you're moving to a higher level positions and making more money every time when you get promoted or move to another organization, then obviously you are improving in your career and your career is going well. Now, obviously, if the opposite happens, then you could say that, hey, your career is not going great. But career is sort of intentional, kind of a building of something rather than just going and having a job. And that's important. Not everybody has a career. Some people, I mean, if you go and you work in a fast food restaurant, McDonald's or Taco Bell rolling burritos, there's nothing, obviously embarrassing or bad about it, but it would be, in most cases, people probably don't think of it as a career. It's just that, they're just trying to make some extra money maybe while they are studying. And when they're studying to become something, and that's their career. And so when they graduate, they leave the job in a fast food restaurant and they start their first real job that is part of their career. So career management is the process of enabling employees to better understand and develop their career skills and interest, so that they know how to use those skills and interest in a most effective way, both within the company and after they leave the firm. So career management isn't just about that job, although, I mean, at that particular position that you are in right now, it also reaches, what you do when you leave. And this is kind of a tricky, thing, because, many managers, they feel like, if they invest on your career management and they train you and invest a lot of money in it and then you leave, they almost see it as a betrayal. because they don't want to lose your retention. So sometimes people are reluctant, or organizations are reluctant to invest on training because they feel like if we train you here, then you go and take advantage of those skills somewhere else and we don't benefit from it. So that always gets kind of tricky on these things. But my attitude on this is that when I'm a manager, when I'm a leader, I'm training everybody else to take my job, because eventually I want to get promoted. And when I get promoted, I want somebody to take my job. And so I want to be able to manage my team in a way that somebody's ready to take my job. And I have to accept the fact that people don't always, their career doesn't mean that they're going to stay in this organization, because not everybody can take my job. And if there's several people who want to be promoted to my job after I move up, then what's going to happen to some of them? Only one can take my jobs. And then I have to accept the fact that, part of career management is also to let people go, when they want to leave, and accept the fact that, that's part of the management process. So it's not necessarily always bad thing when people leave. That's why in terms of turnover, they talk about normal turnover, positive turnover, and negative turnover. So kind of natural, organic, normal turnover is just a natural role of people moving in and out of positions and moving up in their career. When people retire, that's also normal retirement. That's positive retirement. You are letting them to retire and they completed their careers. Negative turnover would obviously be when you have to let people go, and that's when you did a bad hire and therefore you have to let them go. Career development, on the other hand, is that lifelong series of activities, like workshops and other things, that contribute to person's career exploration, establishment, success, and fulfillment. So what you are all doing over here right now, it's career development. I mean, you are going to school to develop skills and knowledge and get a degree that helps you to establish yourself and get you, more success and fulfillment. And career planning, then, on the other hand, is that a deliberate process through which somebody becomes aware of their personal skills, interests, knowledge, motivations, and sort of other characteristics. And so where you acquire information about opportunities and choices, you identify your career-related goals and you establish action plans to attain those specific goals. So planning is sort of that specific process. And it is a big part of it is getting to know yourself, because and this is, by the way, important. If you are laid off or for whatever reason you lose a job and you are in a situation of temporarily between jobs, that being between jobs, people many times perceive that to be very negative, because obviously financially it's difficult and maybe they didn't want to lose their job. But that's always an opportunity for self-exploration. It's always an opportunity to ask yourself, what it is that you want to do, what it is that you could do, and so to kind of learn more about yourself would be kind of great. So really, career is always an opportunity for you to reinvent yourself. And people have difficult time with change. Obviously, change makes people uncomfortable because it changes things, and people sometimes change impacts people negatively. They may lose some privileges, some aspects in their life that they feel comfortable in, and they have to move to some other location. Relocation can be uncomfortable. Losing their kind of daily routine, and certain things can be uncomfortable. Change requires risk. It requires taking chances and moving to a different situation, hoping to improve your life. But it doesn't always happen risk-free. And so there's a process of reinventing yourself in your career that is necessary, especially in today's sort of a rapidly changing environment. I mean, business world changes so much, so fast. Of course, the biggest reason that world changes is technology. Really, I mean, there's other reasons, of course, too, but technology internet has been the single biggest factor in changing organizations in human history that we can think of. Really, since Industrial Revolution, internet has been humongous, how it's changed the world. And so this idea of reinventing ourselves is, especially after the pandemic, has become really, really something that people tend to be doing. And we talked about silent quitting, when people, leave their jobs because they realize all of a sudden that they're not happy, there anymore. And part of it has to do with the fact that during the pandemic, people learn to appreciate work-life balance. They learn to appreciate, family. Some people lost family members, so they start kind of thinking about these things, deeper, and realizing that work may not be the most important thing in life. And so those are things that are kind of important these days, reinventing yourself and work-life balance, that people want more. And that's why people, even when it's not necessary anymore due to pandemic, people still want to kind of work from home a lot because, remote work is now possible because of technology. So psychological contract is kind of an important part of career management. It's unwritten agreement that exists between employers and employees. It's that trust, that commitment that there may not be the psychological contract has sort of changed. There used to be kind of a job security. There used to be, back in 70s and 60s and 70s, baby boomers, expected, when they were working for a big corporation like IBM or General Motors, they had this kind of almost expectation of, I work for this company for my entire life, and they provide me job security and they provide me pension. Well, that type of a situation does not really happen anymore. In very few people stay with same organization their entire lives, and the expectation is not there anymore for that type of job security. So the psychological contract has changed. People perceive themselves more like independent agents. And by the way, there's a good reason for it. If you compare somebody who stayed in the same organization whole throughout their career, and you compare to somebody who's moved from one company to another company to get promotions, the person who moved through different companies, in the end, at the end of the, when they are about to retire, and you compare their income, the person who jumped through organizations made significantly more money, multiple times more money in their career than the person who stayed in the same organization. And that kind of makes sense. If you are have a job and you go apply for a job somewhere else, you can potentially get 10,000, 20,000, whatever, depending on what kind of job it is, increase that in the same job, you would never get a pay raise that high. So the only way to make a really significant pay raise is to go to a new company. So people understand that, and that's why sort of the psychological contract sort of has also changed, because people don't expect to stay somewhere forever, and employees don't expect the employees to stay there forever. So employees' role in career management is obviously their primary responsibility, because it's their career. And it's a process or a responsibility of the employee to really understand their individual strengths and weaknesses, with the occupational opportunities and threats. So as you can tell, that's SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You've probably heard about SWOT analysis. In marketing, they use SWOT analysis a lot, and strategic management we use SWOT analysis a lot. So you can do SWOT analysis on yourself. There are a lot of, if you go Googling SWOT analysis, you'll get a lot of templates and examples. But it's very, very cool to be doing a SWOT analysis on yourself in terms of your occupational and career opportunities. What are you good at? What are you not so good at? What are the opportunities out there? What are the threats? And to map it so that you understand those. That's really kind of important. Now, John Holland has a personality type model where he basically found that there are basic personality types or orientations, and so individuals can assess their occupational orientations and preferred occupations based on, the different types that they are. Now, there are many Holland personality type, similar type, inventories out there. So it's not just Holland, it's just one model. There is DISC, there's Myers-Briggs, there's all kinds of different things out there. I really don't like this idea of calling it a personality type, because truthfully, it's not really personality types. I mean, Holland has categorized people into certain categories of sort of skill sets that analytical people, feeling people, different types of. It helps us to kind of get a fundamental idea of what our orientation is. But that's all it is. It's our orientation. It's our preference. It's not personality. Personality, psychologically speaking, is the word-to-word definition for personality is relatively stable characteristics of a person that define a person. So, I mean, first of all, it's dynamic. First of all, it's relatively stable. In other words, our personalities do change. They're not staying forever the same. And so if something changes, then, how can you define it? Also, if you study psychology, you would know that there are different camps of psychology. They define what personality is very differently. So psychodynamic, psychoanalytic kind of a brand of psychology, also called depth psychology, studies unconscious. And according to psychodynamic model, personality is partially unconscious, that we have a conscious part of it and unconscious part of it. Behavioral psychologists don't even believe that personality exists, because they believe that when we are born as tabula rasa, which means empty blank, and everything that we are is sort of like computer programming. Computer, when you buy it from the store, doesn't have anything other than operating system. When you start installing software to it, that's when it becomes the type of computer that you want it to be. Behaviorists think of humans the same way. We start as empty blank, and everything that we learn defines who we are, but it's not really personality. It's just a result of conditioning. And cognitive psychologists, in their mind, they think that personality is just some cognition or some idea that you built in your head about yourself. It's not unconscious. You are fully conscious of it, but it's just a cognitive, conceptualized, kind of a idea. And so anyway, that's a little deeper than we need to go on that, but just, I mean, Holland's model is something interesting that you may want to look at as kind of defining who you are, but don't take it too seriously. No test tells you who you are completely. It's just kind of a guiding light. I think we are going in a different direction over here. So employers' role in this is, we talked about this before, realistic job interviews. It's very important for employer to give a realistic job review from the beginning, as part of a job interview, because that helps a person to determine if that's the right fit for their career. I mean, think about it. When you apply for jobs, you may wind up in a situation where you have 3-4 job offers, and you have to make a decision which one you want to take. Those kinds of decisions are really important decisions in your life, because they may determine a lot of things. If you have family, they determine your family's future in very significant ways, especially if relocation is involved. And so it's a difficult decision, and it's something that you wanna make carefully. Now, as part of that decision, wouldn't you want to have correct, realistic information? I mean, would you want to start a job knowing exactly what to expect? I mean, has anybody ever, do you want to share? Has anybody ever started the job and realized that it wasn't anything that they thought that it was going to be. I mean, I certainly have, there's been jobs where I interviewed and they told me one thing, and, then I found that it wasn't exactly the same way that I thought that it was going to be. Has anybody ever had that situation? Don't all talk same time. I'm just kidding. it's okay. So periodic job rotation is another way to employer can help people to explore different careers. If you do job rotation, if we exchange jobs. You do my job, I do your job for a short period of time, and we train each other to do each other's jobs. Then we are able to kind of explore other jobs in an organization, and we are able to think, hey, look, maybe this may be a better fit for me. This may be a better career direction, because we don't know what we don't know. And that's sometimes a problem with career exploration, is that it's very difficult to find out if we would like something, before we actually get into it. So let me just tell, a little bit about my background. When I went to school, I got my undergraduate degree in psychology. And I right after that, I went to a doctorate program, in psychology, one of those 5-year programs that you start after your bachelor's, and then you go to your master's level, and then doctorate in a whole same program. And I was in that program for quite a while. I mean, I earned probably I don't know, 50 some credits or something like that. So it was a couple of years, just enough to like earn my master's level. And I started working in psychology field, psychiatry. I worked in 10 different mental health agencies throughout my first career. And then I realized that I didn't like it. I realized that it wasn't really me, that it's rough, working in mental health institutions and mental health hospitals. It's very stressful. It's very ugly sometimes. People do terrible things in hospitals. I mean, mental health, psychiatric hospitals. It's kind of like things that, a lot of people don't even realize that goes on there. And things that you really can't talk to your family or anybody, because there's client confidentiality, and they wouldn't understand anyway. I mean, it's just, I mean, you treat people who swallow objects, and, they're violent, they, do crazy things, right? So, and I work with children and adolescents, and, some of the kids that I work with, they, had experienced very, very serious abuse, sexual or other physical abuse, and some of them were raised in a cult environment, and I mean, just all kinds of different backgrounds. And it was so sad. I mean, so sad to work with these kinds of people. And I just, I just wasn't, able to separate my feelings, just be clinical about it. And so in the end, I realized that it wasn't for me. And I moved to a completely different career and went into management, and went to business school. And I don't regret it at all. But, I would have saved a lot of years if I would have found that out earlier. I had an illusion about mental health work being something very, very different. I guess I visioned myself in a nicely furnished office, sitting there like Sigmund Freud and saying, well, tell me about your mother, and that's not the way it is at all. So that's the problem sometimes with career management, is that we really don't know, how something is going to be, unless we have an opportunity to kind of experiment it a little bit. We already talked about the career-oriented appraisals, how kind of important that is. That's job appraisal, performance appraisal is the point where you really can have these discussions. Now, these days, career management and career development is so much easier than it used to be, because, back in the day before internet, you would have to go to a library. You would have to read newspapers. You would have to, not everybody would have access to all information. Right now, through the internet, you have the whole world, in front of you. Now we have to be aware that not everything you read on the internet is true, and we have to have information literacy. But the access that we have to information, I mean, before, long time ago, it was just very few selected people would have that amount of information in front of them. So there's so many e-learning tools, there's so many workshops, there's so many programs, there's so many things out there, career assessments, like I said, those different kind of inventories, Myers-Briggs, in DISC, whatever. There's a lot of ways to get feedback, and there's a lot of on-site trainings, there's conferences, there's just so much out there. It's a whole industry, and you also have to be kind of careful about that industry, because people can take your money really quickly and promise you the moon, and you take these workshops and learn nothing. But but the opportunities are there, and so there are lots of career planning workshops. And again, if you take those from reputable organization like for Society for Human Resource Management, or Association for Talent Development, ATD, or there's Department of Labor, they offer workshops, and so if you are taking those workshops from reputable organizations, Small Business Administration, whatever, you can be relatively safe, and there are some very, very good ones out there. And then of course you can hire a career coach. There are career coaches out there who can work with you, and it's very, very helpful, extremely helpful to go through that process, to have somebody to help you, ask you the right kind of questions so that you can reflect and learn about yourself, contemplate on your options. So HRIS has really kind of become, integrating talent management and career and succession planning. It's PeopleSoft and other tools like that out there that companies are using have really, really helped the succession planning and career development. I mean, so you can literally assign certain training kind of things for people. If you are as a manager, as a leader, you want somebody to kind of take over your job, you can assign them in PeopleSoft system or HRIS. You can assign them certain modules, certain learning things, and you can kind of help get them started kind of learning your competencies. So it's integrated software systems like that. They do a lot. Also, okay, Winnie, you say in terms of, let me just see what you said, in terms of career exploration, one shift, like say I'm moving to medical field. So yeah, I mean, that's another problem. I mean, it's another problem, of course, and yeah, it's an ongoing process. I mean, sometimes it's not easy to move between fields, right? So for me, moving from clinical psychology into management, it wasn't easy, because I had to kind of start from scratch, start from the beginning. I had to go to new doctoral program, get a doctorate in management, then get a job at a business school in an entry level kind of associate, assistant professor, and kind of move my career up from there. So I spent 10 years moving up in health, human services, mental health field. Now I had to start again, because those skills were not immediately transferable. So yeah, I mean, how do you move from medical field to technology business? Not necessarily easy. And so that's why so many people are getting MBAs, because at the end of the day, MBA is the most flexible degree out there. With the business degree, there's so many different kinds of industries, so many different kinds of businesses. Management is universal, so there are a lot of choices. But when you work into like medical field or something like that, you don't have that many choices. You are going to be working in some sort of medical clinic or hospital or something, unless you jump out of, and go to different industries. So yeah, it's difficult. It's not even possible for some people to make that career shift, and like for me, I worked 26 years now in higher education. I don't think that it's easy for me. I mean, maybe I could do more consulting or something, but really, I mean, I'm quote unquote stuck in higher education at this point in my career, which I'm not complaining. I like it, and can't imagine doing anything else. But I mean, that's why career steps, you want to make decisions carefully, because you may be quote unquote stuck with your decisions later on in your life. So obviously people with disabilities, they tend to have less career success than those without disabilities. And some of it is just obvious. I mean, not all jobs are able to make the accommodations, and so it's difficult, obviously for a disabled person, it's difficult to get a job than somebody who is not disabled. It's sad, unfair, but that's the truth. But also some of it is self-imposed. People with disabilities, they may have lower career expectations of themselves. And they may be saying, look, I mean, I can, I'm in a wheelchair, so I probably can't do this or that, or people probably don't let me do this or that. So for disabled people, they have to kind of have an extra grit, I guess, or extra determination to succeed in their career, and they should really learn how to really raise their expectations for themselves as well. Because one thing that I've learned about disabled people is that disabled people are very abled. In many ways, people who are disabled, they can be super excellent in some other things. May not be something that they can physically do, but you put them in the right kind of situation and they really are able to overcompensate for their handicap in being excellent in other. So handicapped people, disabled people, make really good employees. They are dedicated, they are committed, and so it's part of just people believing in themselves, and employers also being educated about the fact that disabled people can be really good employees. So some of the things that disabled people can do is maintaining a positive mindset, and like I said earlier, demonstrating extreme persistence. It's I've known some people who are disabled, and it's amazing. They are involved in Paralympics or something like that, and their determination is just amazing. Also, sensitizing people to ability over disability. The thing about it is that when you work with people who are disabled, they don't mind talking about their disability. People around them say, yeah, I don't want to ask them, what happened, or I don't want to ask about, talk about their disability because that's embarrassing. But people don't mind. People who are disabled, they don't mind. They've accepted it. They know what's going on. And so, they just want to be treated like equal. And so they also themselves can do a lot by being open about it, by showing people that they are willing to learn new things and new skills, and helping coworkers to work with them, kind of a thing, and not to be afraid. Just because you're disabled doesn't mean you're going to break. I mean, and so help people to overcome worries, focus on task at hand, and really fight those stereotypes regarding competence. And one thing that I wanted to say is that physical disabilities are one thing, but there's also mental disabilities. And this is something that the world really has to learn. Depression and anxiety are world's most widespread ailments. In the United States, roughly 25% of adult population is suffering from mood disorder. It's antidepressants are some of the most widely prescribed medications. So it's out there. Lots of people are disabled mentally because they are suffering from chronic depression or chronic anxiety disorder or something of that kind. And there's a huge stigma associated with that. People think that mental health makes you weak, or I mean mental illness causes you to be weak or dangerous or something like that, and that's completely incorrect. Depressed people can be very capable. Depression is not same like sadness. People manifest depression a number of different ways. Anxiety, same thing. I mean, it's just because somebody has a disorder doesn't mean that they're not capable. I like to think about like successful people, movie stars or so forth and so on, that talk about their mental health. Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all times, the swimmer Michael Phelps has talked about his mental health issues a lot and really helped people to open their eyes about that. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, the actor, I mean, you would not think that he's somebody who suffers from anxiety, but he's talked about a lot of his mental health issues. So, I mean, there are lots of people who we don't realize they're famous, they are celebrities, and they suffer from psychological handicaps, and yet they are super successful. So it's the way to look at handicaps, to realize that just because you have some problems in life, at some challenges physically or mentally, doesn't mean that you can overcome them. So also diversity, in just not just basically disabled, but we all have to accept disability as part of just diversity. Diversity doesn't mean different races, different nationalities, different cultures. It means different mental health statuses, different physical capabilities. That's also part of diversity. So disability advocacy, both psychological and physical, it's kind of important. Awareness building, influencing organizational policy making so that organizations can create good policies that promote those kind of healthy environments. Building, leveraging, and contributing to relevant networks. That's really important to be involved and advocating. If you are not want to be an ally, if you are a disabled person, look for support systems and networks to be part of, because they can help with the general adjustment and career growth, a lot. So it's really good to kind of get involved with other people who also feel that way. The manager, a good the number one reason for people leaving jobs, by the way, is a bad supervisor. So supervisor really has a very, very important role in career management. So we really should not underestimate the impact that your immediate supervisor can have on your career development. It's humongous. If you have a bad supervisor that you don't get along with, it's stressful. The psychological labor that you put into it is enormous, and it's uncomfortable. But if you have a good, supportive supervisor, that's worth gold. I mean, that's amazing. So it really, really has a huge impact on you. So yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily expect that you want to share any stories, because when I talk about necessarily when I'm a bad mouth our supervisors, but I know personally I've had bad supervisors, and I don't know. I mean, I maybe suffer is a wrong word, but I definitely have had some stress and challenges because of that. But it's important for supervisors and organizations to identify people who can do mentoring and coaching, and those are two different activities. So mentoring is when experienced senior level person is advising, counseling, and guiding, kind of your career development. And mentoring is proven to be very effective. It can be very systematic. It can be formal or informal. If the organization doesn't formally give you a mentor, we all should seek mentors. I've had people who've been my mentors in my life, and they impacted me enormously. There's one person that I consider a great mentor is Dr. Ashok Malhotra. He is professor of philosophy, and he's retired right now, so he's emeritus, but he's a distinguished teaching professor at State University of New York, and had a fabulous career. He's written gazillion books, and so he's just somebody that, although I don't teach philosophy, but I admire him. I admire his wisdom. He's taught me a lot. He's helped me, a lot in difficult times, by just talking, and and so That kind of mentoring is really invaluable, very, very valuable. Now, coaching is kind of more specific on daily tasks. That I mean, sports coaching is a good metaphor. Coaches teach you those specific skills and daily tasks so that you can easily learn and relearn, and so that's the difference between mentoring and coaching. Let's see, we are almost having a break time here. Maybe this is a good time to take a break because it kind of shifting of topic to engagement. So this is a good place to stop and take 15 minutes coffee break. So it is 10:52 here. So let's just come back after like 7 after 11 or 7 after whatever time it is in your neck of the woods. So I'll leave this over here. I'll just turn my microphone and camera off and enjoy your coffee break. See you soon. Are you all back? Whoever is not here, please raise your arm.
I'm here.
Good.
Whoever is not here will never raise their hands.
That's right. That's right. Glad you got it. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So mentioned this earlier. Why should people be loyal? And why should managers be loyal? I mean, think about it. If like I just said earlier, if people make so much more money job hopping from one organization to another, and we all know that, then managers should also expect that and say, why should people be loyal? And I think it's okay to understand that people won't stay in your organization forever. I don't think retention means forever. I think retention means as long as employee perceives that there are opportunities within that organization. And if you get 10 years out of somebody, that's fantastic. But normally, maybe 5 years should be a goal. I mean, so I don't think that managers should get that caught up about what's going to happen in the future. I think that if you help people to grow, you develop them, they are likely to stay longer with your organization. And then if they go somewhere else, they also kind of improve your brand and your reputation, by talking positively about your organization. So it's not just like that you don't kind of benefit from that. If you treat the employee well, you will benefit from that, for years to come, even if they leave, in a small kind of a sense. So it's important to just because you know that people don't stay forever doesn't mean that you shouldn't commit to them. And if you commit to your employees, they give you commitment back. And commitment doesn't have to mean lifetime. Commitment can mean, like I said, 5 to 10 years, and and that can be a very, very good good run for a lot of people. If you get 5 to 10 years out of somebody, you should be happy and not look at it negatively. That is a bad thing. Sometimes it's good that person moves on. If you can provide them that opportunity and next promotion, and they are clearly capable of it, then celebrate the fact that they move and get it somewhere else. At least that's the way I look at it, and so with my team and with my employees, I always show them commitment. And it's not about you have to stay with me. It's about I'm going to take you as far here as I can get you, and give you those career-oriented appraisals to help you move up. And if I don't have that position for you, to get to that next level, then go somewhere else and look at it. Then I'll help you to go there by giving you a recommendation and reference, and that's what you do for people.
So, Professor Tomi, so basically it's loyalty, it's not the honesty.
Yeah, I mean, like, what does loyalty mean, right? Like, does loyalty mean you have to? I mean, look, they used to be. I don't know if you remember, Police, old band from the 80s and whatever. They used to be, if you love somebody, let them free, right? Old song. It's kind of the same thing with employees, I think. If you really care about something, if you're really committed to somebody's growth and development, then that should mean that you should be committed to it, even if that doesn't mean staying with you, right, in your organization. So loyalty, to me, loyalty doesn't mean that that employee has to stay at your organization forever. Loyalty can mean a lot of different things, and part of commitment and loyalty, if you really care about somebody, is to also prepare for, to really care about their career and not just care about what's good for you and your organization. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, that's a good point that you're saying. What is loyalty, right? I mean, what does it mean? I mean, should you be loyal, just because You know, I mean, would you stay in an organization if they don't give you that promotion opportunity just because you have to be loyal to them? Would that be right to you? And would that be right for me as a manager to expect you to do that? And my answer would be no, it's not right. You know, if I'm really loyal to you, then I help you, even if it means you moving to some other organization. It's Medtronic is a medical technology company with 85,000 employees around the world. And so they offer many sort of wide range of career planning and development support tools. And so they are kind of known. They support people to go to school. They new MBA employees can participate in the corporate leadership development rotation program, where there's a 2 to 3 year program that includes 12 to 18 months assignments in different locations. So essentially, it's an executive management training program, and so that's an example of you know, if you are loyal to somebody, your employees, and you want to show your commitment and loyal to them, develop a program like that. When you give people that opportunity, and through that opportunity, you know, you give them a reason to stick around. So loyalty shouldn't be loyalty for the sake of nothing. Loyalty should really mean like you demonstrate that you are loyal and committed to your employees, and the employees demonstrate that back to you by you putting in place programs that you know, benefit people. And so I think that's kind of important. So I talked about this already. There's voluntary turnover. There is, you know, involuntary turnover, also called positive, negative turnover. But turnover requires a talent management strategy, because there are some positions that are what I would call single point of failure. You know, you may have one position that is so important that it may be a single point of failure for the whole organization, especially if it's a small organization. So, you know, if you're a smart manager and you have those kind of key people in your organization, you have to accept that, you know, you may end up in a situation where you have to involuntarily ask them to leave if they, you know, violate some policies or something like that. You never know what's going to happen. Or they may voluntarily leave, you know, because they get a better job opportunity somewhere else. So you have to have a strategy in place to know what you're going to do with those critical positions. And that's why the job rotation is so beneficial, because if you had done job rotation, then if that person leaves, you have somebody to take over, you know, that job, you know, right away, in an acting role or permanent role, depending on how you would you know, how it works out. By the way, do you know what the difference between acting and interim is? So if somebody's sort of temporarily in a position, sometimes they're called acting and sometimes they're called interim. So does anybody know what the difference is?
So acting will be a stretch job, and interim role will be like for a specific period of time. Let's say interim role will be a seasonal role, let's say. So if the company decides to have interim role for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, this only will do the job, and after the 6 months, will go back to the original position. But
Yep.
acting as will do the exact job for some time, and then eventually will get the promotion to this role.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, it's you're in the right direction. The way I understand and way I define it is that if you're in an acting role, you still do the duties of your previous job, but in, you know, in addition to that, you are taking over somebody else's responsibilities and acting that position. So you kind of have a dual role, and so you get paid a little extra for doing a little extra work, but you are holding another position as in addition to your own position. That would be acting in many cases, most cases. Now interim means you let go of your previous position, you take that new position temporarily, completely, fully, but you don't serve in your old position anymore. That's kind of one way to, you know, they're very similar, but both acting and interim can lead to person permanently taking that job. Now, obviously, interim situation is more likely that that person gets that position permanently because they are doing it fully without, they're letting go of their previous responsibilities. Acting cannot be very long term because you don't want person to be doing two jobs very long time. But that's often happens. And so that's how I different acting versus interim. But yeah, interim many times then becomes the permanent, in many situations. But
Sorry, Tomi, I have a comment here.
yeah, go ahead.
I think there is one more difference between acting and interim role because in the seasonal role, you are like more likely to get extra pay for the new job. So
Yeah.
sometimes if they have, let's say, this position for 3 months, and in the company I work for, usually they hire for like seasonal jobs for the peak time, which is
Yes.
Christmas, Black
Yes.
Friday, and this. So they will
Yes.
hire for seasonal roles, and they will give extra pay for those roles. But for the stretch role or acting as many times or 90% of the time, the person will get this position in 6 months. So let's say they will say Muhammad will take over this job as acting
Sure.
as, let's say, L6. So I will be acting as L6 for 6 months
Yes.
without getting any extra benefits for this job. But at the end of the this period, most likely I will get my like a promotion and get it like permanently.
Correct. Yes. I mean, you're right. Many organizations do not give an acting person extra salary, and then they do kind of feel like in return of your extra effort, you'll get the position permanently. So maybe sometimes you are acting while they find to, replace your old position, and then you can get that position fully. So you're absolutely right. And yes, you are right about the interim. There are interim roles out there that companies even hire and said we are looking for an interim this and this. It doesn't even have to be existing employee. It can be somebody coming in from outside to be an interim, sort of temporary, amount of time. And so you're right. There are job postings for interim directors, interim people. So that's also very, very true what you say. That makes sense a lot. And just because I'm defining it, a certain way doesn't mean that companies would be consistent. I mean, they can use those terms interchangeably, but obviously when you have a turnover situation, whether it's involuntary or voluntary, you often wind up then in an interim or acting situation if you don't have a talent management strategy, or maybe your talent management strategy is interim scenario for a while. And so, but point is that you have to be prepared for it. So I mentioned already that there's a huge cost over replacing a new employee. So this one study said that in this particular organization, they determined that an entry-level estimated cost of employee leaving was $21,551, which is just an agent in particular company. And then so annual cost, because they have a 60% turnover rate, which is enormously high turnover rate, by the way, is $400,853. So they I mean, they really had to change their ways, and they had to improve their turnover, and they had a goal of cutting it in half to about 200,000 per year, which is still a lot. But how do you cut your turnover? And so promotion opportunities, training and development, pay and reward satisfaction, family-friendly policies. Those are just some examples of how do you lower your turnover. But just think about 400,000 a year. That's a lot of money for a small business at least, and something that you are just handing out, money that you don't have to lose, but you're losing it just because you have a lot of turnover. And where does that money, what does that constitute? $20,000 for one replacing one employee. Well, some of that is loss of productivity for the hours and time that person is not working on that job, that you don't have anybody on that job, or you have somebody training for that job, but they're not able to really fully carry on the productivity when they're just training. So some of it comes from that, and some of it comes from recruitment cost, placing ads, advertisement for new job position, HR personnel's time, and all of that. So when you calculate all of those things, that's where the cost comes for replacing an employee. So one of the ways, well, there's many ways that you can help retention, and one of the ways is to do exit interviews. Now, it's kind of you have to take them with a grain of salt. If people leave, they leave obviously because they are not happy about something, and so they may not be honest, or maybe they blow it out of proportion. It depends what people say. So not everybody wants to, tell the truth when in an exit interview, especially if they're fired. It's hard to do an exit interview with somebody who, you had to involuntarily let go. But at least voluntary situations, if you had a good relationship with that person and you manage them well and they just found a better opportunity and they are not disgruntled, it is good to talk to them and say, why did they leave? And then you study their answers, and you develop strategies of how to make it better for the next people, learning from people's reasons of leaving, what they were unhappy about it, and then try to fix those. Attitude surveys, job satisfaction surveys, but particularly attitude surveys. What are people's attitudes towards your organization? Because there is what they call the ABC model of attitude formation: affect, behavior, or cognition. And so attitudes, once an attitude becomes a cognition, that people know that something is unfair, know that something is negative, then it's very difficult to get rid of that attitude. So it's sort of important to measure people's attitudes. I'm sorry for the noises in the background. My dogs, they are always in my office when I'm working. You can see one over there and the other one is black and white. Well, they both have kennel cough. I guess they went to dog park and they got sick from some other dogs, so they're coughing, kennel cough. So they are all right. They have some medicine, but they just make weird sounds. So if you hear somebody coughing behind, that's just my dogs. They are sounding weird. So yeah, attitude surveys, like I said, it's really good to study people's attitudes, their satisfaction, and then try to act on it, try to, make corrections. Open door, meaning managers welcoming people to complain and vent to them. This is interesting. If a manager says that, oh, I'm doing so well, nobody's complaining anything. If nobody's complaining, you're probably in trouble, because reason people don't complain is because they're already not committed and engaged, and they're probably polishing their resume and interviewing for other jobs. They just want to be in their best behavior while they're doing that because they want to be fired before they are ready to leave. People who are engaged and really care and committed to the organization, they do complain, they vent, they have complaints, they have grievances, and you want to hear those grievances, because nobody's happy all the time. Just because I don't like something some days doesn't mean that I don't like the organization and I'm committed to it. In a matter of fact, the fact that I'm spending psychological energy or complaining about it means that I probably care. And because people don't complain about stuff that they don't care about. So people should be allowed to complain, to a certain degree. Obviously, you don't want to have venting sessions where people just complain to complain, But there's usually a point to complaining, and you want to hear what people say. So open door policies and hotlines where people can, give their ideas, give their grievances, and do stay interviews, not just exit interviews, but ask those people who are staying and not leaving, why are they staying? So that's kind of the opposite of exit interview, but it's a good idea. And again, realistic previews, realistic job reviews. When you hire people, tell them from the get-go, what they are up to, are going to be facing. So SAS is a high-tech company in Silicon Valley. They have employee retention programs. That they well, I mean the software company SAS. So they have these retention programs that sift through employee data traits like skills, tenure, performance, education, friendships. You may think that that's a little unethical to talk about sort of friendships or whatever, but look, friendships and sociograms, they call it, people who are connected to who in an organization, really is pretty important. There's informal leadership chain hierarchy in organizations, and understanding that in a systematic way and having sort of an algorithm in a computer system to be able to kind of track that can really predict which high value employees are more likely to quit in the near future. Because what happens is that if somebody is friends with somebody and somebody works together with somebody and somebody is connected to something and that person leaves, the likelihood of that person that is, friends with them or connected to them, of them leaving, becomes much higher, because maybe they don't want to work with the new person. Maybe they share the complaints because they heard that person complaining a lot. So it's important to understand that kind of informal hierarchy. And SAS is a pretty sophisticated, progressive company. They also, by the way, SAS is interesting because they have unlimited vacation time. And one would say, well, that's crazy. You give people unlimited vacation time. They can take vacations and never come to work. Well, it doesn't work that way. You can take unlimited time off as long as you agree with your managers that you've done with your work. And if you manage your projects in a way that you get the work done, then you can take time off. But in reality, people don't take as much time off because they just don't get the project done. So it actually is not, it doesn't end up causing any losses for the company at all. It's there's many other companies that do the same thing, but SAS is one of their known ones for that. Job withdrawal. Like I said, when people stop complaining, that's an example of job withdrawal. Actions intended to place physical or psychological distance between employees and their work environment. You can kind of tell when people start withdrawing. They start closing their doors. They start socializing with people. They stop engaging with their managers, asking for feedback, asking assistance to improve, and so you can kind of tell when that happens. And it's something that kind of happens and grows sort of incrementally. So it's not just all of a sudden. It builds over time, where people just kind of start withdrawing, and people withdraw to protect their own psychological, health. They become stressed out, and they just can't take it anymore, so they start withdrawing. And it can have high costs, especially if people get to the burnout situation. So you really want to understand the causes and have some withdrawal reducing strategies in place to help people who start job withdrawing, because they'll probably most likely leave eventually if you don't stop it. So there's a life cycle to everything, right? There is organizational life cycle, there is product life cycle, and there is employee life cycle. And normally we would in our life cycle, we would increase to positions with increased responsibility. And by the way, increased responsibility doesn't mean management responsibility, because not everybody wants to be a manager. And sometimes the best way of rewarding somebody is to promote them into a manager position. If you think about salespeople, for example, if somebody is a really, really good salesperson, they really, really hit their quotas all the time. They really, make deals all the time. They sell a lot. And then you say, well, you're the best salesperson I have, so I'm going to promote you to a sales manager, sales director. Well, and then all of a sudden they don't perform really well as a sales manager at all. That's because they don't want to manage other people. They want to sell. They excel in selling. They excel in, doing that activity, and that's what they're good at. They're not necessarily good at managing others and managing their sales. So sometimes you want to make sure that you kind of give people what they want and don't just promote them to a position because you think that you want them to be rewarded. So there's different ways of rewarding people, and doesn't always mean promotion to a different job or management responsibility. So you want to have an effective promotion strategy and want to think about, and this is why you need to talk to your people so to get a sense of what they want to do. In many places, like higher education is one example. I can only talk about my own experiences because that's the industry where I have worked. A lot of professors don't want to become program chairs or deans or vice presidents or provosts or something like that. So before you start promoting people, you need to ask them, is this what you want? And if it's not what they want, then that promotion has to be coming in certain way, different way. And in higher education, we have ranks. So you can be a lecturer, assistant professor, associate professor, full professor. And so if you want to stay as a professor, but you don't want to move up to an administrative kind of role, there has to be a way of strategically being promoted, in the ranking. And so that gives people a reason to stick around. And ultimately, we have what is called tenure. Now, tenure basically means that you cannot lose your job anymore. It's a permanent budget item in a line in a budget, and theoretically you cannot lose your job. You promised that job for life. That's what tenure basically means. Now, in reality, it doesn't really exist anymore like it once existed, but that's sort of the ultimate, goal for professors, is to earn their tenure. So again, that's a strategy of promotion strategy where you don't necessarily move people to a different kind of a role or administrative managerial responsibility. You got to make some decisions about this. What are the criteria or reasons for somebody to get promoted? Should it be seniority or competence? Some people feel like you should be rewarded for the years of service. Some people feel like it should be more based on how well you do your job. If it is how well you do your job, how would you measure that? How is that measured? And is that measured in a fair way so that you're comparing everybody equally? Is that process formal or informal? And are the promotions vertical, horizontal, or other? So, really, there is just a lot of questions here as well. It's not just straightforward. Gender gap, obviously. When you make promotions, you have to be really careful that you don't, promote just one gender, and that you make sure that gets, promotions get distributed equally. Very, very sensitive, area, because unfortunately, many organizations are male dominant. And so women still don't reach the top of their career ladder in proportionate to their numbers in US industry, meaning that as many women as they are working, and you start looking at how many of them are actually leadership positions, they are still underrepresented to that proportion of everybody working. So women constitute more than 45% of the workforce, but hold less than 2% of top management positions. So obviously there is blatant or subtle discrimination that is taking place there. Women have to, according to some studies, they have to receive higher performance ratings than men to get promoted. And so, they certainly have higher and bigger expectations for them. Now, when you are different race in the United States, Black women, it's extra hard. My wife is a Black woman. She's a petite, short, young-looking, youthful-looking, Black woman. And so she has extra hard time because she has to fight because of her color and she has to fight because of her gender, but yet she's super educated and capable. But, men get the jobs before her. And it's unfair, but we talk about it a lot. So, I mean, I understand that situation, and so the reality is that in United States, white men are still dominant in leadership positions. Now, interestingly, Black women are the fastest increasing group in leadership positions. They're still very, very tiny group, but they are fastest growing. And that has something to do with the fact that African American culture is a matriarchal culture. It's a culture of, strong women, and women get sort of leadership qualities, their upbringing and everything. So, they're very suitable for leadership positions, Black women. So, it's an interesting cultural, factor. But like I said, these white men are still a large population. They are decreasing, but they still are the dominant. And Black women are very, very small population, but relatively speaking, they are increasing faster than any other group. So there's some progress. Transfers and retirements, managing transfers between different departments, big organizations, these kind of things happen. You want to stay within the same business, same corporation, but they have different strategic business units. So you are kind of managing those transfers, and that's sort of interesting because when you move to that next business unit, you don't need all of the same training that a newcomer would, but you still need some training because some things may be different, some things may be same. So how do you kind of navigate that, and what kind of training you provide to people is kind of tricky sometimes. Moving from one job to another, we talked about that a lot already, but that's something that employees have to prepare for and employers have to prepare for, and everybody has to be kind of on board how to manage these situations. Retirements are becoming a significant issue because our workforce is getting older. Baby boomers are starting to retire, and baby boomers are such a large, significantly larger population than the generations after them, which is Generation X. And so Gen Xers are now assuming sort of the higher leadership positions from the baby boomers, but baby boomers are retiring in such large numbers that there is a need for professional trained workers, out there in top levels. And so it's a significant issue generationally right now. And it's becoming really difficult. Also, other thing that is interesting is that people are increasingly not retiring. Like personally, I have no intent to retire now, because I don't know what I would do with myself if I would retire. So I don't think that I will ever retire completely, that I would completely give up teaching or, working in higher ed in some capacity. If I can get out of bed in the morning, I would rather work than retire because I don't particularly like not doing anything. So people, because of health issues, sometimes they retire because they just can't, but people live longer and they stay healthier longer, so people can work longer. So there are a lot of issues with the retirement. Part of it is retirement benefits and savings. People don't have enough savings to retire, so some of it is also, economic. Dismissals, important issue. Out of all of the lawsuits that there are out there about employment related lawsuits, they are typically wrongful dismissal, wrongful termination. People getting upset and suing the organization that they were fired without a reason. So you have to have reasons why you fire somebody, even if it's an employment at will state, which means that, you know, people can leave without a reason. You can fire them without a reason. You still can't fire them without a reason, because if you fire them without a reason, they can come up with the reason and they can call it discrimination, harassment, or something like that. So you have to have a documented reason to protect yourself in the court of law. Unsatisfactory performance always is the most typical one. And so you have to document it over time that somebody, you know, had unsatisfactory performance and that you followed progressive disciplinary, you know, verbal, we talked about this before, verbal warning, you know, written warning, you know, this and that. And that you try to give them opportunities to improve. Misconduct is a different thing. You know, if somebody really commits some policy violation, serious misconduct, well, you don't necessarily have to you have to document that, but you don't necessarily have to build the case over time. I mean, it's a serious violation. You can let them go right away. But in that situation also, you're better off if you keep them first warning. And if it's not serious, you can say, okay, you know, don't do that again, you know, or else kind of a situation. Lack of qualifications for the job. You know, sometimes jobs change. Sometimes jobs, you know, start introducing new technology and new types of things. And so you could actually reach a point where you have no longer qualifications for your own job. So because there's changed requirements for the job. So, you know, that can be an issue as well. Jobs change, requirements change, demands change. So those become kind of complicated, and sometimes people are let go because they just are not capable of doing their job anymore. Insubordination, obviously, you know, somebody commits insubordination, they don't do what they're being told to do, and what they're being told to do is ethical and within the reasonable, you know, job responsibilities. You know, that can be a cause for dismissal immediately. So fairness, when you dismiss somebody, allow full explanation. You have to hear that person's, you know, side of the story and document that, because otherwise, if they go to court of law, the person will say, you know, you never even allowed me to explain, you know, because sometimes there could be misunderstandings. Like I mentioned earlier, multi-step procedure, there has to be an appeal process. You got to think about who does the dismissal. If employee is having an issue with the particular supervisor, maybe that supervisor should not be the one, you know, who does the dismissal. And also, if it's not really, when it's more of a layoff and not, you know, firing for reason, severance pay has to be discussed. Now, this is a, you know, point where, you know, we should talk about something very serious, and that's work-related homicide. You know, in the United States, we have a lot of mass shootings. There's been hundreds of mass shootings in this year. We hear about them, read about them in the news sometimes, and, you know, but not all of them get talked about in the news. And a lot of mass shootings, a lot of homicide situations are caused by work-related situations where somebody gets dismissed, fired, terminated from position, and they get upset about it. They come back with the gun and they shoot a bunch of people. It's a horrible thing that happens, but it happens, unfortunately, to the point that homicide is one of the leading causes of death in the workplace. Now, it's not that common for somebody to die in a workplace. Most commonly, people die because they fall off ladders and, you know, scaffolding. So accidents like that, you know, happen sometimes. But, you know, homicide is one of the leading causes of death, you know, and so while it doesn't happen, statistically speaking, a lot in a big country like this, you know, it happens hundreds of times every year throughout the country. So it just goes to remind us that, you know, when we do let somebody go, and if we have to do that, you have to do it right. You have to protect yourself and protect the organization, and you have to make sure that you do this the right. And the person who does the dismissal cannot be the person that person is upset with because you are just, you know, throwing gasoline in the fire. So this is a very serious issue, and it's a very serious reasons why, you know, this has to be done fairly, because when you fire somebody, you are potentially quote unquote ruining their life. I mean, you're really seriously negatively impacting their life and their livelihood and their financial security should not be done lightly. But unfortunately, some managers, it's just transactional. It's just, they don't think about the consequences. They just think about, the job and the organization, and they let people go pretty easily. And it's a horrible thing, but it happens. So here is some severance pay, job level. Usually, if you worked in 1 year, how many weeks for severance do you get? So typical, 5 years, 10 weeks, executives, managers, professionals. So yeah, that's kind of the typical situation. 10 years, 20 days. So when you think about it, it's not that many, really not that many at all. I mean, 1 month severance after 1 year of service, it's not something that is sky high, but it's a fair thing to do. I mentioned this termination at will. There are many states in United States that are so-called employment at will. Employee can resign for any reason at will, and employer could similarly dismiss an employee for any reasons, technically by law. But like I mentioned earlier, dismissed employees increasingly they take their cases to court, and so that's why you, although technically you could do it at will, you really can't, because you still can't. You can terminate somebody without any reason, but like I said, they will. There's always a reason, right? You don't just let employee go just because you want to let them go today. So legally, you don't need a reason, but when you take somebody for court, when they said you still can't terminate somebody for wrongful reason. So that's kind of a weird, right? You don't need a reason technically by law, but you still can't terminate somebody for unfair, illegal reasons, wrongfully. And so if you don't give them a reason, they'll come up with some sort of illegal reason or wrongful reason that they challenge you in court. And when you don't have documentation of the reason, the employee will say, look, it has to be this because you can't explain it any other way. So that's the problem there. Wrongful discharge, wrongful termination, same thing. When the employee's dismissal does not comply with the law or with the contractual agreement stated or implied by the employer. So that's when harassment, discrimination, a lot of those kinds of situations come into play. And so it doesn't follow the policies. Somebody's wrongfully let go, for unethical, illegal reasons. And, sometimes it could be intolerable working conditions. When the working conditions are so intolerable that somebody simply cannot work in those conditions anymore, that could be wrongful constructive discharge claim, where somebody says, I just, you put me in a dangerous situations, really, really bad conditions. So I just had to quit. And now I'm suing you because you never told me that you're going to put me in those sort of situations. And, you forced me to quit. So that could also be legal in the case. Supervisor can be legally personally liable if the supervisor violates company policy in wrongfully terminating somebody. They do not get to be protected by the organization if they also violated policy in doing that. So supervisor can be personally liable for wrongful termination. And so you definitely, when you are letting somebody go, you want to have a checklist to make sure that everything is done right and everything is covered. And you definitely want to make sure that the IT department knows, because you don't want a disgruntled employee who got fired to have access to your computer system and do something harmful. So important stuff. Termination, exit interview. plan the interview, get to the point, describe the situation. I mean, kind of common sense here. Obviously, you want to listen, you want to give the person opportunities to kind of discuss it. And, if you're going to give a severance package, review the severance package, and then you identify the next steps. So that's pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any questions at this point? We're almost at the end here.
All
A lot
good
of
here.
time. Okay, cool. A lot of times when somebody's terminated, if the company is doing it like a layoff and it's they really want to help the employee because the job is no longer available, because of whatever, changes in organization, restructuring or something. In those situations, many times the companies providing the employee outplacement counseling. So they send them to, job coach, career coach, and somebody, maybe certified resume writer, who can help the employee to get a new job. And so that's way they make it a little bit more tolerable and easier for the employee to tolerate. I mean, the combination of severance and outplacement counseling can actually work out in a way that that person gets in a much, much better situation after a little while. And so exit interview, exit process, and so it has to be for the employee. It can't be just to be protect the organization. You really want to make sure that you do the right thing for the employee. Layoffs are sad, but they happen. And interestingly, if organization, quote unquote, right sizes and ends up laying off people, from organization's perspective, that's actually not a bad thing. So just because organization is laying off employees doesn't mean that they are not profitable, doesn't mean that they are not doing well. It just means that they are maybe managing more efficiently. Maybe they came up with a more efficient organizational structure. They streamlined jobs. They came up with a better workflow, maybe introduced robotics, AI, I mean, whatever it is. So although it's very, very bad for the person who has been laid off, the reality of it is that it's not always mean that the organization is in trouble. And it's a tricky thing. Sometimes layoffs happen, and sometimes the company has to lay off few people to save everybody. And so it's a complicated situation, but of course, it always has negative consequences. It impacts negatively the organizational culture and morale. There's survival skill for those people who are left behind and did not get laid off. They are wondering, how come I didn't get laid off? They feel guilty about it if they care about the people who were let go. So it's complicated. There is some protections out there, Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, called WARN Act. Basically means that if a manufacturing plant is going to be closed, they have to give ample warning to employees before they can shut it down. But it doesn't apply to all kinds of organizations. I've heard situations in restaurants, for example, that people showed up to work in the morning just to see a sign in the door and say, we are no longer in business, because it's not a plant, it's a restaurant. So it's complicated as well. Like I said, downsizing, cut cost, raise profitability. Sometimes it's done for right reasons, and sometimes you can argue the management reasons. But you gotta let the right people go in the right way, in a compliance with law. It has to be just and fair. You need to make sure you have security if people come back, shooting around or something. And you try to reduce the uncertainty by providing people outplacement services and whatever, so there's no way of making it sound like it's a good thing. Obviously, it's not good when you have to lay off, downsize people, but it's necessary sometimes. So anyway, we got to the end of this. Thank you again for listening, my babbling. Does anybody have any questions at all before we finish here?
Thank you so much, Tomi.
Thank you everybody, and again, thank you for your willingness to listen, and please work on your first project so that you have that done, so that you're gonna leave both of them in the end of the course. And in a week or two, we'll have another quiz, and then you have the final project, and then we are Christmas time, so we are moving forward well. We are past most midpoint of the book right now, so we are making good progress. So keep reading the book, and let me know if you have any questions. Okay.
Thank you, Tomi. Bye.
Bye. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.